gentlemen. It's kind of a strange time of year to be having our annual town meeting, but the right day, when we should have had it, of course we couldn't have it because of COVID. So here we are tonight on this wonderful one evening. Why don't we all stand and we'll start with the flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd like to, I'm Bobby Starr, I'm the moderator, and the first item would be to have the clerk open the meeting with the beginning of the morning.
The legal voters of the town of Troy are hereby warned and notified to meet at the Troy Elementary School June 8, 2021 at 6 o'clock in the evening for the following business.
Thank you, Gary. Now we're on page 5 of the report book, which is the warning for the annual meeting. We have extra books up here. If anyone forgot to bring theirs or would like an extra book. And we'll follow the articles in numerical order. In the first item of business under Article 1 is to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. I have served in that capacity for the past year, and so the floor is now open for nominations for moderator.
I nominate Bob Starr.
I'll second that.
I've been nominated, and is there a second?
I'll second it.
Has been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of me serving as moderator, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's carried, and Article 1 is adopted. Article 2, to hear, read, and act upon the town officers' reports. And if you've had an opportunity to go through the book, there's several reports throughout the book that the different town officers have put in the book and then sent out. And what would be good is to, if you do have questions in regards to any of those reports, this would be the correct time to ask about them. And if you're satisfied with the reports that are in the book, the chair would accept the motion to adopt them as printed.
I'd like to ask a clarification question. When you say the report's in there, does that include the statement from the Troy Volunteer Fire Department Chief?
There's a report in there from the Troy Volunteer Fire Department.
So is now the appropriate time to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I will direct the question to you, sir, and you may relay it to the fire chief, Bobby, I believe, correct?
Yep.
Thanks, Rob. We, as taxpayers, are asked to appropriate this year funds that are on page, if I'm not mistaken, I want everybody to be able to follow. Give me a moment, I apologize. That would be on page 9 of this year's report. They're requesting a total of $27,218.95. Am I reading that correct? It would be the third line item on page 9 from the top. You see it says voted on in 2020, where they had 24,744, third item down. To the right is what they're asking for this year of $27,218.95, correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Yes.
Yes. That appropriation is for what? Fire protection for the town, correct?
Yes.
In what capacity?
You mean, where does it start and where does it stop?
We are all town taxpayers, the village included. We are all billed for the town of Troy's volunteer fire department through this appropriation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear the answer.
Yes.
Yes. Does that not entitle to everybody? You asked, you responded to me with a question. I didn't ask what boundaries, I asked what that entitled us to. I don't mean as far as boundaries. What kind of fire protection does that mean? Are they a mutual aid fire department? The town clerk's been misinformed? Because the conversation I had, Mr. Chairman, with the town clerk 2 days ago was, her understanding was that for village residents, the town of Troy is a mutual aid fire department. Is that correct?
I believe the way I said it to you is they are part of mutual aid. If I'm correct, and Bobby maybe clarify that, is they all help one another out. You belong to a mutual aid group. You going to be just something?
I understand that. I understood that all fire departments can join an association becoming a mutual aid fire department. I understand that to be correct. Am I correct? Mr. Chairman, you may ask the fire chief. He's here and present. I dare not ask direct questions. I've been informed not to do that during these proceedings, so.
Actually, I shouldn't be answering any of the questions. I should be directing them to the right person, and you should be directing them to me.
Thank you for clarification, Mr. Chairman. That's exactly my understanding as well. So my question would be, if the town clerk informed me as a village resident being taxed at the town level for fire protection, me as a taxpayer being treated as the same and equal, how did we become mutual aid in their response? My concern is, and the reason I make this statement is, I own a scanner. I hear the calls as they're toned out. I hear the discrepancy between the town clerk and her comment being, yes, they're mutual aid. There's no doubt. All fire departments can join that association and become mutual aid. So my concern is, I've lived in this village for 15 years and in the town for longer, on several different occasions. And this was just brought to my attention, that these services are being somehow, I can't think of the word, redirected at a village level or at a town level. Some other agreement between the town and the village fire department has been made that when seconds count, they're minutes away. An example sits out here at the edge of 105, leaving the village. It wasn't until the village arrived that mutual aid was requested at the town level. We as taxpayers don't pay for that to be a mutual aid. We as taxpayers pay to have that department toned out. We as taxpayers in the village have chartered a separate fire department knowing we're way over here at this end, and I understand that. And we pay that through our budget. So when I look at this book, and I asked a question 2 days ago and I was given an answer that they're mutual aid, and I have this awful sick feeling in my stomach that if I called at 10 o'clock, my house is on fire, dispatch tones out at 10:02, North Troy decides, okay, at 10:03 or 10:02 we received your tone, at 10:04 we are now en route. Great response time. At 10:06, 6 minutes after my call, I have the first firefighter from the village on scene. This is just a scenario. When seconds count, you're minutes away. 8 miles to Troy. Dispatch isn't toning out Troy for village fire departments. I have a scanner. Maybe the fire chief will clarify that every time the village gets toned out, he's ignoring the village tone. Because I know they respond on mutual aid calls. And I'm not accusing them of ignoring any tone they've ever gotten, because I know they've never done that. They have always responded to every tone they've ever had. I hear it. I'm not putting anything disparaging on that department. Bobby, don't take this personally, my friend.
Sir, when you say the fire chief, and that's me, ignoring the tone, that never happens.
I never said it did.
Never happens.
I never said it did.
It will happen. When there's a fire in this village and they need help, we are requesting.
Why would that be, sir? Here's my point, Mr. Chairman. We're going to take a vote here to appropriate funds. Wait, please, let me finish my statement and my question, okay? My question was, what are we being limited to? There's my ultimate question and why I asked it. My ultimate question is, why are we paying as taxpayers at a town level for resources that are being restricted on time to us, for somebody else to authorize at a village level? And the evidence is plain. The evidence is plain. You can ask the fire chief if dispatch is toning him every time dispatch tones out the village. It's a simple yes or no question. And why wouldn't they?
What would you like to ask for the question?
My question is, why are we being treated like lesser citizens from the Troy Town Volunteer Fire Department in their response?
Yeah, thank you.
So I can respond to the financial part of it, to a point. So this is the town appropriation been voted on by the entire town.
Correct, I understand that.
So it's a little bit different. It's been voted on that way for over 45 years, and it's perfectly legitimate way to be done, and that's why it's done that way. It doesn't, it's to support the fire department, and how the fire departments respond, and now Bobby can answer this question way better than I can, is more has to do with the area you cover. I mean, so, like, who gets toned down first, and that's dispatch, right?
Not yet. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Bobby, you want to explain the way that, and you explain it to the chair.
So, what happened is, there's a fire within the jurisdiction of the North Troy Fire Department. We are not,
What's the jurisdiction?
that's what I'm getting at that. So, we all know that the line has been brought up 1,000 times. The village, Bear Mountain, 105 is the town line in Port Center, 105, Richard Mountain, down Maple Road, Bird Road Hill, and that's all to do with response time. On this side of the town, North Troy's going to be there before us, obviously. I've been in the fire department 21 years. It's been the same since I joined the fire department. North Troy is a separate fire department than the town of Troy Fire Department. So if they have a call down here in the jurisdiction, they have to request us to respond as mutual aid. They need our help. That's when they call us. They have a car versus near accident where they don't need 4 fire trucks and 30 guys out of Troy. They're not going to call for us. But if there's a house fire, then they're calling for any sort of situation.
Does that work in reverse as well?
And if I have a situation in Troy where I need their help, I ask them all Troy to come help us. Because we all of the fire departments, there's 21 fire departments that are involved in the Northeast International Mutual Aid. Everybody pays $100 a year to join this mutual aid, and it was formed for the towns to save money. Everybody joins this mutual aid that way. If North Troy comes to Troy, or Troy comes to North Troy, we don't bill each other. That's what the agreement's for. So towns can save money if we work together. We're not billing. Because one fire could be thousands and thousands of dollars each town.
Yep, thank you. Are there any other questions in the book?
Yeah, I have more questions about this exact same subject. Given his answer, given the town clerk's answer, and Mr. Langland's answer, we as town residents pay for the fire department to protect us, period. And somehow, because we as village residents, and we have a separate village resident budget, we have chosen to enhance our village protection by having our own entity and our separate fire department to enhance what has always been in existence, the Troy Town Volunteer Fire Department. which covers the town that the village sits in, that the village residents pay taxes to the town for fire protection. When a tone comes out, I don't care if I have a village fire department. I'm paying for that. What I care about is I'm paying for a town fire department when seconds counts is being delayed. It's being delayed for without a reasonable reason because it makes me a second-class citizen in my eyes. It's telling me because my tax dollars chose to spend the extra at a village level and bring a fire department to this end of the town, that now the town, who at one point had to cover the village before we had a fire department, because you've always taxed the village residents for a fire department at the town level, suddenly we don't have the town's fire protection when seconds counts a minute away. Minutes are added to that response call. So I'm confused.
What is your question? Ask your question.
I'm expressing your concern. You want my question? The ultimate question was, why am I being treated as a second class? Why am I being discriminated against? Because we chose at a village level to enhance the fire protection here close in the village. The town suddenly delegated what jurisdiction and who made that jurisdiction decision. If it's always been this way, Mr. Starr, then somebody's got to have an answer when it started, because the village didn't always exist.
Well, I've lived here for 70-odd years, and I've never known it to be any different. Actually, Troy didn't have much of a fire department until like maybe 30 years ago.
And where was that fire department, sir?
Pardon?
Where was that fire department located 30 years ago?
In Troy, Vermont, just beyond the restaurant on the opposite side of the street.
And where was North Troy Village's fire department 30 plus years ago?
Right over on Pleasant Street where it was for 50 years, and now it's down here.
And
As far as your claim about being discriminated against, it's pie in the sky, because if you look in our warning tonight, you're going to see that we're going to appropriate money here at the town level to help the village fire department. And we're very fortunate to have two good fire departments within minutes of most people's homes.
right, when seconds counts, one of those that we are being paid to have respond is being delayed, sir.
Right?
And again, you brought up the fact that we're going to appropriate for this village fire department as well. A fire department that was billing 662 village residents for, and by the way, another question, we'll go back. I don't want to ask this one right now. Because, Mr. Starr, am I not allowed to ask these questions? Because you look like I'm annoying you, and I don't mean to, sir.
You're starting to, yes, but keep going.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought town meeting was so we could have these discussions, sir. You're a politician. You're elected to this to be a moderator. Have I broken the format?
We need questions.
I'm asking you a question then.
An answer.
Which subject do you want to continue to talk about? The town fire department or the village, since you referred to the village fire department? Because I have more questions about both.
The only way you can talk about the village meeting, the fire department, is when we get to that item on the agenda.
Okay, so we'll stick to what I was talking about before you brought up the village, okay? So at the town level, when we appropriate these funds, since you keep pointing it out, the technicality of it being appropriated, and I'm paying the same as every other taxpayer at the town for those services. When did I lose my rights to have them restricted in time?
You never had lost your rights. It's all in the process.
Why is the process delaying their response? They're paid when they're appropriated the funds to respond to fires in the town, are they not? Is that not what these, here's the question. Doesn't that what this appropriation money's for protection of fire in the town to the residents? Yes or no? That's all I ask.
Yes.
Yes. Then why are those resources being restricted to me in time by some other fire department's decision that isn't operated by the town.
So I just, we're voting the whole.
And you're, wait a minute. Please tell me who you are for the camera so my viewers understand your position with the town and who you are, if you could, please. Thank you.
So, we're here to vote on, one of the things we're here to vote on is these individual assessments here, okay? And the services that each of them provide, because, you know, some of them aren't even in the town of Troy, et cetera. And the service that the Troy Volunteer Department provides is covered in this amount. And we're voting on whether to support them with that, support them in what they do with this amount. And so if the town votes to pass that amount, we are giving them the money to do what they do. If someone doesn't think, or the whole town doesn't think, that what they do warrants that money, or that they should be doing something different for that money, the town has the option to vote that article down. So I think that is the bottom line of what we're voting on here. Do we give the Troy Volunteer Department this money to continue to do what they are doing?
Did I ask you that question? Mr. Chairman, did I ask that question?
No, you asked the question of why you're being discriminated against.
In the use of the resources that I as a taxpayer are paying for. That was my question. We're not voting on that budget right now, Mr. Langland. I'm not sure why you responded in that way. I understand when we get to that amount, we will be appropriating that amount. That's what they're asking for. I asked what that amount entitled me to as a taxpayer. Is it fire protection? Mr. Starr asked the fire chief. He said yes. I asked why that protection was being hindered. The fire chief answered that question usurpiously. He answered their mutual aid. Every one of these fire departments are mutual aid. I understand that. But I don't pay Westfield to be mutual aid. They don't have a fire department. I don't pay Newport Center to be mutual aid. So my question still has not been answered. What is this money that you're going, because this is entitled, we're discussing the fire chief's report. That was the point to order, Mr. Chairman, that prompted these questions. The fire chief's report. I'm asking because he reported in here that he has passed on an increase to the budget to the town residents. So I'm asking these questions because as a town resident who's being billed for a fire department that I chose to be billed at a village resident, as well as at the town resident, what this appropriation entitled me to. And the only answers I'm being given is, when seconds counts, they are even more minutes away because they're not being toned out per what they're asking for from all of the residents in the town of Troy. He stated they have divided the district up with the village fire department. I, as a village resident, will take that up at the village meeting. I, as a village resident, do not pay taxes for the village fire department unless they are under a mutual aid agreement to respond outside of the village. But yet I've heard, as he has stated and witnessed on my scanner, that the village is, exactly as he said, been redistricted. So when I ask again, I'd like an answer to what this money that they are appropriating from us in his statement is, entitles me to. Fair and equal treatment, the same response that every town residents get, or a mutual aid response upon request from the village?
I think you got your answer. The village is only minutes from your house. You stated that.
So is the town.
So if you call the Troy Fire Department, it'd probably be 5 or 10 minutes before they get to Troy. So, I mean, I don't know where you're coming from about being discriminated against, because what you're going to end up with is a quick response from the local fire department and a backup response from the other end of town to help out if there's a real serious fire. So, and it's right in reverse. If somebody in Troy has a fire, the Troy Fire Department goes, and then they call North Troy. Now, if we did it the way you'd like to do it, that money in this budget would probably be 50% more, because Troy would come, North Troy would go, and then when you had a fire out in the town of Troy, North Troy would run to South Troy, and Troy would go, so it would make just a lot more running around for the fire trucks, the firemen, and, you know, I can't follow your line of thinking about being discriminated against, because that's the last thing we would want.
Would you like me to explain that to you, sir?
We have a lady over here that's had her hand up.
Page 21 will answer whatever questions you have, but I'd like to move the question, please. I'd like to move everything.
You'd like to move beyond onto the question?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a second for that? That has been moved and seconded that we move on to the next.
I object to that out loud. Thank you.
Well,
No, you may move on, Mr. Chairman. I have a right to object and state it on the record. Please move forward. No acknowledgement needed from you, sir. Thank you.
all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion
You don't see
carried.
discrimination.
So
Second
Article
minutes away,
2
right,
is
and I'm
to hear, read, and act upon the town
Right on
office
Facebook.
report. Is there,
You can't.
there could be a motion to adopt the reports as printed.
So,
Then move to adopt the officer's reports as printed in the book. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 2, the town officer's reports that are in this book as printed, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and Article 2 is passed. Article 3 is to elect all other officers required by law, and if you look on page 4, there's a list of all the different town officers, and the year beside over to the right of that on which ones are up for election. And the first one I have is Mark Stanville as a town selectman. And Mark he's been a selectman for quite a few years and has opted not to run again. So the floor is now open for nominations for town selectman.
I'd like to nominate Gaston Bathalon.
Gaston Bathalon has been nominated, the gentleman at the end of the table. Is there a second to that? Has been seconded. Are there any other nominations for town selectmen? Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of Gaston Bathalon serving as town selectman for the next 3 years, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Motion carried, and Gaston is elected to be our selectman for 3 years. Congratulations. Yes.
Mark, for all he did.
Yes. Mark was here, we'd give him a good round of applause. Yes. So our next officer is, our first constable is John Cogan. I don't believe John is here. No. But this is an annual election, town constable. The floor is now open for nominations for town first constable.
I'll nominate John Coburn.
John Coburn has been nominated. Is there a second? Thank you. Has been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of John Coburn serving as our first constable, say aye. Aye. No opposed, nay. First constable is carried and John Coburn is elected. The next town officer is town auditor, and Margaret Maynard has served in that capacity for quite a few years, and is not here tonight. The floor is now open for nominations for town auditor. Yes.
I nominate Margaret Mears.
Margaret Minger has been nominated. Is there a second to that? Has been seconded. Is there any other nominations for town auditor? Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of electing Margaret Minger as our town auditor for the next 3 years, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Margaret is elected. The next officer is Lister, and that is Susan Herschel. The floor is now open for nominations for Lister.
I nominate Susan Rochelle.
Susan Herschel has been nominated. Is there a second to that? Has been seconded. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of electing Susan Bershot as the town lister for 3 years, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carried and Susan is elected. Now, do we want to do our tax collector later? Well, we'll may as well finish up our officers. The next one, sometimes we wait and later in the meeting and do the tax collector. We may as well get it over with. So our tax collector is our county clerk in trade. And Carrie was served as our tax collector for quite a few years. Yeah. More than a few. So the floor is now open for nominations for tax collector. Carrie Medley has been nominated. Is there a second?
I second that.
And second too. Are there any other nominations? If not, all those in favor of electing Carrie Medley as our tax collector, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried, and that's a good job being tax collector. So that's a really good job. So that completes our town officers' election. So Article 3 is over. Article 4, shall the voters approve general fund expenditures of $212,700.85. What is your pleasure on the general fund? Well, I'll jump at once.
I vote to approve.
Motion's been made to adopt Article 4 of the general fund expenditure. Is there a second to that? It has been seconded. Any discussion in regards to Article 4? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 4 say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay. Article 4 is adopted. Article 5, shall the voters approve a highway fund expenditure of $528,174.94. What is your pleasure in regards to Article 5?
I'll make a motion that we accept, adopt.
Motion's been made to adopt Article 5 as printed. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Has been seconded. Any further discussion in regards to Article 5?
I'd like to say thank you to Bobby and the crew for keeping the roads, the way they do, especially during the winter. At a time when, people have to get out, they're always there, the roads are always good, so.
I second
Yeah, and it's usually on the weekend, it's really nice. Any further discussion on Article 5? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 5 say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Article 5 is adopted. Article 6, and this Article 6 takes in quite a list of organizations and groups of people that we normally fund and have funded over the years. Shall the voters approve $109,093.55 for the following appropriations? And they range, from the village fire department to the American Legion. There's a host of different organizations that we contribute money to. One on this list that I'm part of is VNA, Visiting Nurses of our area. And I know, we really appreciate what the towns contribute to the well-being of our mostly elderly citizens within our whole region. So what is your pleasure in regards to Article 6?
Has the floor been open for discussion on this, Mr. Chairman?
Get a motion first. We usually get a motion first.
To do what? Approve it or disapprove?
Motion has been made to adopt Article 6 as printed. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt Article 6. Is there any questions or discussion in regards to Article 6?
So before any questions were asked, you appropriated the money just now, correct? You just asked if you... Is somebody taking minutes from this meeting just now? Could you read back what his motion, what his question was?
The motion is to approve. It has not been passed on the floor.
It was seconded.
People have made the motion.
Somebody just seconded, approved the motion and then seconded it. That was to approve that money. What was it to do then?
It was to bring up Article 6. So now it's open for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shall we go through each of them one by one? Is that what the chairman's going to do?
No, it's approval. The motion was to adopt Article 6 as printed.
Right.
And it was seconded. Now we're open for discussion on Article 6. Any one of the 25 or 7.
Right, any one of the listed alphabetical numbers on that page, right? Correct? So I have a question about, again, the appropriation of $5,000 for the village fire department. What would that appropriation be for? Mr. Chairman.
The chief from Troy.
So that $5,000 that the town of Troy pays the village fire department, the village of Troy, $5,000 is for them, for the coverage that they have, like as I said before, they cover Bear Mountain, they cover 105, part of East Hill, Searles Road, Bergeron Hill, Baby Road. That $5,000 is for them because they're first responders to those areas. Backtrack a little bit, as I said before, I've been on 21 years, it's been the same thing since I've been on, before my time. The lines have never changed in 21 years, it's always, actually the money's gone up. It used to be 4,000, now it's 5,000. That's what the $5,000 is for.
So, if I understand, Mr. Chairman, the North Troy Volunteer Fire Chief just responded for the Village of North Troy Fire Department. Am I understanding that?
No, he was responding to your question.
Who is asking for the $5,000 that I am questioning in letter F? Who made that appropriation request?
The town, North Troy Village Trustees.
No, that's not right. In this case, it's the town of Troy that votes that specifically. North Troy has not requested that. It's Troy that agreed to pay them so much. It wasn't a request from North Troy. It came from Troy and the fact that they covered part of the town's area.
Please clarify that for me, because I'm not understanding what the clerk just said.
What was just said is that $5,000 comes from the selectmen in the town of Troy to cover the village of North Troy's fire protection in the town because they go up to the Bayer Road, L105, Bear Mountain, so that's to help them cover that expense.
So a clarification in meaning the same thing would be the town is paying the village fire department that is paid for at the village taxpayer's base rate for protection to go outside of the village limits that the village pays them to do. So, given that answer, and that the town is paying the village for fire protection, I, as a village resident, am paying the town for fire protection, and they're not responding when the village is being toned out. And yet, as a taxpayer at the village level, I'm paying the town just like the town is paying the village. But yet again, when the tones come out, and I'm not disparaging North Troy or the Troy Volunteer Fire Department, the chief seems to think I am, and I'm not. It may have been that way for 21 years, but clearly it's not fair and equal protection. Yes, we have a village fire department. It's out of the village's budget. You people have chosen to pay an extra $5,000 to get our village fire department to extend its radius, to cover that extra area. I am still paying the exact same amount as every other town resident for the same protection that those residents get. Only when seconds count, they're being delayed by minutes. And as a fire chief, if he doesn't see that, the greater risk, because your greatest risk is not having enough manpower, enough resources. So what's the harm in having me pay for two departments that are supposed to be responding? Having too many resources is not okay? What is the 27th? Here's my question, Mr. Chairman. I've asked it before, but I'm not being given a real answer and an explanation when I pointed out your contradictions to the answers given by the town clerk, to the answers given by the fire chief, to the answers given by Mr. Langland. They don't all match up. I, as a village resident, am paying for 3 different fees for fire protection. And one of those fees is being restricted at my village level. And the town doesn't seem to think that's a problem. But yet they're asking to appropriate the same amount of money. In fact, here's another question. Is that the only money that the town is getting to run that fire department on?
It's from the town.
From the town. But they also have outside resource money coming in to operate that department as well, don't they, Mr. Chairman?
I couldn't agree to that.
I'm asking a question. Does the town of Troy Volunteer Fire Department take resources in from an outside town to do municipal fire protection to another town?
We'll ask the chief in New Hampshire does.
We get, Westfield has already passed their budget. We asked the same amount from both towns.
Thank you, Mr.
We covered
Thank you.
Westfield and we covered Troy.
So in total, you're operating the town fire department on 2 towns' funds. The Westfield Fire Department, or the Westfield town budget, their appropriations that you asked from them, the same that you're asking from us, 27,000 whatever, exact same figure. So you're operating that town fire department with funds from Westfield as well as funds from the town for a total of $50,000+. Okay? I just want to clarify. I understand we can move on. Those were my questions. They've been cleared up. And if the fire chief took any offense to this, Bobby, I am so sorry. I never said you were not responding to calls. I have a scanner. I was clarifying that you're not being toned out the way my tax dollars are supposed to be being spent. Lack of resources is a hazard. Lack of manpower from a volunteer fire department or a paid fire department. By the way, that $5,000 you're willing to give to the village, they bill us an hourly wage per man to respond to fires. $10 an hour. They're not a volunteer fire department here in this village. We pay them to respond. The other day, they left the village, went to Canada. This money, $5,000, in my eyes, is money being thrown away on you.
I think, sir,
I'm done.
You're going to take that discussion to the village meeting.
Well, it's on an item here for $5,000 for me as a taxpayer at the town level. Why would I not only take it up here too? Why would that be, Mr. Chairman? Isn't it the town asking for $5,000 for the village fire department? Am I misunderstanding what you're asking for here, sir? Then why did you just make that statement to me? You don't want me to bring it up here?
You were talking about the village fire department getting paid $10 an hour to go fight a fire. Well, take that issue up at your village meeting.
I'm taking it up here at the town level as a taxpayer because I'm being asked as a taxpayer for $5,000 more for that department.
We have nothing to do in the town about what they pay their firemen or don't pay their firemen.
$5,000 you do. You just said the trustees give it to them, or the selectmen. That they're the ones that asked for this.
Any other questions? Because we got a couple of other people that...
You've answered them. Move on.
Confusing me slightly. We have 2 fire departments, 2
Yes.
chiefs. So if I'm understanding the costs, it's basically, if we put it all into one, it's operating costs. And so operating costs are $5,000 for the village, $27,000. Is that what we're talking about?
No, so-
It's not operating costs.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just that $5,000 is just for the village fire department. It's for their time and services to cover part of the town, because they're closer. It's count.
Right, so it's an does that go towards operating costs?
I don't know what they do with that.
Oh, I see.
It's just $5,000 that we're giving them.
Okay, and is that reflective of a percentage population? Like you guys get 27, we get 5, or?
Well, no, that's separate. That's
different.
just from the town. They have their own budget. They have their own operating budget that's much more than that.
Got it.
So they still have their own budget. That's just the town part for their coverage and our portion of it.
Okay, so the village of North Troy has a different budget than the Troy? Separate.
Separate municipality, yes.
So
Village of North Troy resident.
I understand. Yes, that's what I need, I'm confused.
Like, so,
So I'm actually a Troy taxpayer, not a village taxpayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why you would be confused.
No, I just wanted some clarification, I just, we're trying to.
It's a little messy the way it works, but it works well. Ain't far from anybody's home, the fire department, it's not far, and they work well together.
So there is a designated fire department for North Troy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, Helen?
So I think there might be some confusion here because the two fire departments are fundamentally different in that the village one is a department of the village and it's under the control of the village trustees. But I'd like you to ask Bobby to explain how his fire department is not under the control of the select board. He may be able to explain better how his runs.
Troy Fire Department in Troy, we're privately owned. We're basically subcontractors with the town of Troy and the town of Webster. We pay all of our insurances, own insurances, we pay all of our own truck payments, we buy all of our equipment ourselves. Nothing is, this appropriation is what we, and Westfield's appropriation is what we run on. So as it was mentioned before, the just a hair over $50,000 that we receive a year, that's to maintain 4 trucks, maintain a building, 30 members, 31 members. So it's not all possible.
So you're more like the ambulance service, completely separate from the town providing service.
We're private, like I said, we're privately owned, we pay all of our own, like I said, insurance and everything. We're basically some contractors.
Well, when you say private, you're a non-profit.
Correct. It's we're a corporation.
Yeah.
Right.
You're a 501c, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions in regards to Article 6?
Yes.
I'll call this.
I want to know why the American Red Cross is not down 50%.
They went down this year. That was the
There was no-
appropriation that they requested in their cover letter.
That's okay, that's thank you.
I was surprised too, but that's all that they requested.
You looking at me or?
Yeah, I had a question. Are you looking at me and asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. She asked a clarification between the two fire departments. And the clarification is, from what I understand that Helene just gave, and from what these people just gave, was the village pays for that fire department to maintain the village fires. The town appropriates an additional $5,000 per the selectmen's request to cover that village to extend, apparently, I'm not sure where the contract is, but I'll find it eventually through open records, outside the village to offer more protection and a quicker response for town residents out of the village. That's a good clarification, is it not, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Is that not correct, Select Board? You paid the village to do extended fire protection, is that not what I heard was said?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions in regards to Article 6? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 6, say aye. Aye. And those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Article 6 is adopted. Okay, Article 7. Shall the voters of the town of Troy vote to exempt the following properties from the education tax liability for a period of 5 years? The Troy Volunteer Fire Department and the Masonic Union Lodge, 16 a.m.
We've been doing this for years. Every 5 years, we have to bring it up again at town meeting so that they do not have to pay taxes.
So what is your,
Bobby, I'll make that motion.
then move to adopt? Then move to adopt Article 7 and exempt the Troy Volunteer Fire Department from the Masonic Union Lodge from the school property tax. There, a second to that, it has been seconded. Is there any discussion in regards to the motion?
I'd like to ask a question. What does that monetarily add up to in value to the taxpayers? What is that value that would normally be charged if we don't waive those fees? No idea?
Based on the property values and
And what were those last assessed at? I mean, you're the tax collector, you don't know off the top of your head what we're asking to abate?
what your assessed value is either.
I mean, they're not assessed through the town or during the audits, and they aren't given a value? So we don't know what that real estate value would be taxed at? Is that what you're saying, or?
I could not tell you the value of your house off the top of my head.
I mean, you're asking, I didn't know if this was already arranged and you knew the value that we were asking to abate.
We've done this every 5 years, probably, I can't say how many years, but at least
Okay.
20.
Thank you.
Before that.
Wasn't a question about how long. I just wondered what the value was that was being asked to be abated, because that's what you're asking to do, right? Is to abate a dollar amount for taxes, correct?
Only the school tax included.
Right, but it's an abatement. It's a tax abatement, money that wouldn't be brought in under a tax. So there was a dollar value there that I just asked was that what that amount was, and you don't know. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, any further discussion in regards to Article 7? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 7, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried, and Article 7 is adopted. Article 8, shall the town authorize cannabis retailers and integrated licenses in the town pursuant to 7 VSA 863. What is your pleasure in regards to Article 8?
I make a motion to adopt.
Pardon?
I make a motion to adopt.
It's been moved to adopt Article 8. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yes.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Article 8. Article 8, ma'am, is we passed the cannabis bill in Montpelier, and we want to leave it up to the communities whether or not they want to have retail sales within that community. So most towns put this on the warning so that the townspeople can be sold.
Are we proposing to allow it or not allow it?
The motion is to adopt, to allow.
To allow retailers sales.
It's set forth as a question, not as a shut. Okay. So,
Any other questions in regards to Article 8?
What does that article exactly, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Go for it.
I just want to put it out there as a guy who owns a taco shop that sells junk food, I am completely in favor of this.
Kudos, Taco 321.
Bring in some, more revenue. Plus, the taxes would stay here instead of going to, 2 towns over where they'll pass it.
yeah.
Newport already said no, which means we're going to get all that. And they already get a lot more to come see the
Any further questions or discussion regarding, yes?
What would this entail? That the town would then allow licensing to occur at the town level? And if so, what would the town's limit be?
Yeah.
Would it consist of the village as well because it sits in the town? Or is that something that the village has the right under its own charter to manage?
I would like to believe it would be for the entire community. And
My understanding is that we can't make those regulations yet because they haven't been passed at the state level. We're just saying that when they pass, if they pass at the state level, we won't say no to any retailers who want to come in. But the state may say, you know, only one store per capita. So we can't make regulations yet because the state hasn't.
I haven't met to draw the rules and regulations.
And that would fall within the bylaws of the town where you can set up retail in the city. You can't just set up a retail on Bear Mountain. Although there might be some going on.
I think there's a wholesale business that
So the question I have is that if you vote yes for this, it appears to be binding where, you know, that we will allow this. Whereas if we adopt a strategy of allowing the state to draw up the rules, right? And then open the discussion for retailers to come in, give us their plan, and then bring it before the voters. So in other words, being more informed with the decision as opposed to, yeah, we're going to allow this, but we really don't know yet how the rules are going to support the community and such. Is that fair to say or not?
well, to some degree, yes. The rules and that were supposed to have been done many months ago. People didn't get appointed because of the pandemic and they didn't meet, and so it's just dragged on an extra, basically, year. But I still think, you know, if this passed tonight, there's still room here to negotiate what you allow and this. Gary?
I don't think we have enough information about setting up a cannabis shop. You know, the town of Troy to make decisions on this. So my recommendation is to vote.
Well, that's what discussion's all about. Are there other questions or concerns in regards to Article 7? Yes.
So if we were to pass this tonight, our town has the ability to pass local ordinances to regulate in addition to what the state does, right? So if the state allows something that we don't necessarily want to allow, we'll be able to have a local ordinance on top of that state law, right?
I would hope that that's accurate what you just said, because the rules aren't written yet, so we don't really know all the ins and outs. But if something crazy was adopted at the state level, it seems as though you could vote this down and yeah, we're going to be having town meeting in 9 more months. Hopefully.
So should that be reflected on the article then? That would be has legal action, or that allows us to make the bylaws.
If we vote this down, I have no doubt that it will come back up.
It would what, I'm sorry?
It will come back up again. At that point, we can possibly have more information.
What's the benefit of voting it down or up? I'm confused about how it's actually proposed.
So if we vote to pass it, then we're going to pass it, and then we have to wait until the state does their part, and then maybe not, we'll be able to do our own bylaws or whatever to control.
But can we not make an amendment that says that we will at that point control any changes or bring it back to vote to move on it with, no?
Can we just pass over it?
Oh, yeah, we can pass over it. We have a motion on the floor.
So, a question is, for me, there is a drug-free zone around the school. How far is that drug-free zone? You know?
I think it's 50 feet.
All right, so,
That's not covering too much.
Yeah, it's not far.
So someone could open a pot shop 50 feet from the school?
No, that's a business. This is about in terms of carrying drugs or having drugs and that. I think the federal, I can look it up.
But
I think the
this
federal law.
motion is for an entrepreneur to open a business that sells cannabis. That would not be 50 feet from, I know that like in other towns that have passed this, like in Burlington, they're not allowed to be anywhere near the school. In fact, if there are school-age children in those shops, those shops are shut down immediately. So I don't know if that's a town ordinance or if that's a state ordinance when that happened, but it seems like the town would have some control. Not everyone does everything the same as the next town over. I'm looking at it as a business, not, like bring in drugs.
It is to allow a retail establishment to set up sales.
And those will probably be more tightly controlled than the liquor department. We don't know that, but I'm looking at it as a business.
So
I have a question.
anyways, yes.
I have a statement, as everybody seems to be making concern statements rather than questions, both a question and a concern. My question is, as she wanted clarification, what is the downfall to approving this? What would be the downfall to us approving this, adopting the right to control the licensing of a business? Now, what would be the downfall of that? Anyone? There wouldn't be, because you'd have control of a licensed business at a town level so that no business could come in here without a license and operate under a federal grant that says you are under the carte blanche rule, because the state hasn't set the standards yet, have they, Mr. Starr? So we don't know if the federal government may, before the state sets their standards, pass legislation, do we, Mr. Starr? Right. So the downfall to us passing it is nothing. The downfall to us not passing it is that the federal government may act before the state does. And then the state doesn't have the authority to stop somebody from opening a business, because at the town level, we don't have the authority right now. That's what they're asking for, to grant the licenses, to mandate the authority to keep control of that marijuana business, because it isn't just marijuana sales that's involved in these. There's tons of paraphernalia involved, from pipes to CBD oils to medical condition treatments. What would be the downfall to us not approving this? The lack in the ability at the town level to stop an inappropriate business from opening up. That's my opinion, Mr. Chairman. I don't know what the select board thinks after that.
No, I think they're still talking. There are any other questions in regards to Article 8? If not,
Mr. Starr, if I may, who would be the oversight to these? Would they leave that to the health department at the town level? If we, because that would be part of this.
they don't know.
We wouldn't know at this point, right?
Did you have a question?
Well, he's going to address it. So it seems like it's 500 feet. So 500
Okay.
feet, you could have a store. 500 feet from the school, so that changes my mind about whether it's just a business or not. I just wanted, he found it, showed it to me, and I just wanted to let everyone know that that's right now, the rule is 500 feet. That's the town clerk's office. That's how close that is.
Anyways.
Could I have a, Mr. Chairman? May I have a clarification to what she just said? I didn't quite understand what that was. Is that federal law that you were referencing to the relations of drugs to a school?
State law within Vermont and Wyoming.
I'm sorry.
State law within Vermont and Wyoming.
Right, which is based on a federal law. It's 500 feet. Is that what that's in reference to?
Yes.
So regardless of what we passed here, federal law, we wouldn't be able to supersede that and allow a business closer. So if that's what you were in reference to, it would already be protected. But 500 feet, yeah, it is close. That's under a federal mandate, though. And again, we're not even sure where the town would supersede if that encompasses, as Mr. Starr stated, if I'm wrong, whether or not that encompasses the village as well, through its own separate charter, separating it from the town. Because in this book, it clearly shows some things at the town level are separated from the village level. We at the village pay a separate highway fee. We don't pay you people at the town. We pay that separate.
Okay, any other questions in regards to Article 8? If not, the motion is to adopt Article 8 in opposition. So, all those in favor of adopting Article 8, one, raise your hand. Thank you. And those opposed, raise your hand. That's 6 to 8. A real winner. Okay, so Article 8 is adopted by a few vote margin. Article 9 is to see if the town will employ a CPA to review all the town accounts. What is your pleasure in regards to Article 9? We usually adopt this to have an accountant do that. So, somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
The motion's been moved to adopt Article 9 and to employ a certified public accountant. Is there a second? Has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of adopting Article 9, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Article 9 is adopted. Article 10, to transact any other non-binding business which may legally come before this meeting. Yes.
So as the chair of the Troy School Board, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the town for supporting the school over the past year. It certainly has been rough going at times. We have our principal here today. And, the staff really stepped up, and we thank you so much for passing our budget this year. It really means a lot to have that support. And so, hopefully next year we'll be able to do this in concert with town meeting. But certainly Terry and the group, it was a group of people that helped me kind of put together our own report. It got a little crazy there, but thank you so much for your support of our school. And I think there's much to be proud of. Thank you.
So, there's no other business. Article 11 is to adjourn. Sure.
This is about high-speed internet and access to state funds, or there's a lot of articles that there's potentially funds available to bring high-speed internet to rural areas of kids that are in school
boys Saltman join the group?
Yeah, we joined a coalition that takes in, I think, most of the northern part of Vermont, all of Canada. I think they told us like 110 to 120 towns that are in we joined. And it's a coalition to try to develop the end of the road or something like that, high speed. And I asked a question to one of the representatives the other day, and he said that, I said, why did you table it? I asked, why did you table it? You were promoting this coalition and trying to get us all to go along with it. And he said that's just part of the negotiation between the governor and the legislature. He didn't want to spend $150 million or something like that, and he only wanted to spend $100, so that's part of their negotiation, like they bring it and coming back and going back. So that's, I think, where they are.
Is there somebody looking at a strategic plan, say if and when we got funding, that we would exercise it in this manner?
The Northeast Kingdom Community Broadband is going through. They're trying to develop a sort of a business plan now, but they have to get their funding from somewhere. And so basically what they propose to do is build the infrastructure and then rent it out to providers. But although the funding source is different, yes, they have to look at what kind of customer base they're going to get for X miles of wire, because they don't want to just go broke. So
We got it.
Comcast stops here on Bear Mountain and starts up again up there, and in between, there are some existing infrastructure in place, but somehow just didn't make the turn.
You can call Comcast.
Yes, $40,000, you can have Comcast too.
I know somebody just paid 27. You got
The lady in the back.
Yep, thank you. My question has to do with whether you have made any kind of stand about the towers for the border.
not really. We've not been approached by anybody about those towers.
Do you have
I'm from the Fed,
any
right, from the Fed.
I did email whoever was it in the news, Tom Lee's brought in an article in the newspaper that said, if you have any questions, call the feds at this number or whoever. And I called, I left an email and never got a response. And apparently, that's what he has been told before. They
don't know what the location might be?
The old annex building.
The old duty free on the west side.
Oh, close to home.
Very close to home here.
Thanks.
And they'll be able to keep an eye on you.
Well, the helicopter already does it.
As far as the lady in the back, you have a question?
Well, I'm the library director for Grand Memorial, and I just wanted to let everyone know, we just received a grant to extend our internet and make it faster for the people that log into the library. So we will be having a tech support come out to do that.
And I believe as far as broadband connectivity, we did appropriate $150 million, and this new infrastructure bill that's coming out of Washington, there's going to be a bunch more money coming on that. The big issue that we've got to keep an eye on is not to waste that money, because for one, we've already spent $200 million in you all know what we got for service jump, and because people took the money and run. So I think everybody is being more careful about who they're employing and who's doing what. And I know another big issue is being able to connect to the utility poles. So we've got that pretty well worked out so that the electric companies they got their hand in it, of course. And so we got to pay them, but that's been worked out to a dollar amount, and it's not too bad. So, hopefully in a few years, we'll get that covered. So it'll be based on the grandchildren. As long as you don't live through it. Is there anything else? We have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. And all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, nay. And we're out of here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our trustees for the village.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good town meeting. Appreciate your patience, Mr. Starr. Thank you. You all take care. We'll see you next year. Have a good one. By the way, welcome to North Troy. You've been here how many years?
This is my second year.
Your second year? I normally come by and introduce myself, but I don't have any of my kids left here in the school. I'm Ray Hamill. I used to be one of the active basketball coaches. I had keys to come in and everything, so I haven't been by. I kind of eliminated myself from the school scene after all the political activities that started happening. And we went through many, many principals before the last one, just before you settled in. So, and I was around for all that turmoil, and it was just chaos. And it's so great to see these kids. They've come so far with such great leadership, and I appreciate all you've done. Yeah. Oh, not me. Thank you. Thank you all. You know, I was told by a town resident that I don't show up to these meetings a few years back, and lo and behold, there's a town resident that doesn't come to the village meetings ever. And they made a motion 3 years ago to cut the village budget, and it got overwrought. And now we ran wild with the village budget, and right there's the person that made the motion. And yet she sits here and mocks me and ridicules me. She doesn't come to the meetings. Wanted me to come. I've been to every one. Well, there you are, folks. Kingdom Watchmen, another town meeting. You can see there's a whole lot of chaos and confusion as to exactly what's going on with the fire department and the money. But no, I'm not being discriminated. Fire chief lit out of here like I'd set him on fire, though, didn't he? He didn't want to talk to me. He was pissed. I never once said he was dereliction of his duties, but he acted like he was, didn't he? Sorry about that, Bob.